The day started like any other, with the quiet hum of the city outside, my window and the soft aroma of brewing coffee filling the small kitchen. I had just finished wiping down the counters, the sunlight slanting in and catching the dust motes like tiny dancing stars. Everything felt normal, until I heard the words that made my heart lurch and my hands go cold. "There's someone in your house," the cleaning lady whispered, her voice trembling. I froze mid-step, the rag in my hands sagging against the counter. My mind raced, trying to make sense of the words. My house, my sanctuary, where I felt safe, where I could lock the doors and keep the world out. And now this. What do you mean?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, even as a shiver ran down my spine. She looked around nervously, her eyes darting to the corners of the living room. I don't know. I saw someone, or maybe heard someone. I shouldn't have come here alone." My first instinct was disbelief. Maybe it was a misunderstanding, a shadow, the trick of morning light. But even as I tried to reason it away, a sinking feeling began to coil in my stomach. Something wasn't right. I had always been careful, always meticulous about my home. Locks checked twice, security system on, the spare key hidden in a way only I knew. Yet now, the thought of someone moving through my space, someone watching, made the hairs on my arms stand on end. I followed her into the living room, eyes scanning every corner. My gaze fell on the faint outline of a shoe print near the back. Door fresh, my heart hammered. I knew then that this wasn't a trick of the light. This wasn't a misunderstanding. Someone had been in my house while I wasn't there. For the rest of that morning, I couldn't settle. The coffee went cold, the toast burned slightly in the pan. But I couldn't taste anything. My mind spun with questions. Who could it be? How did they get in? And why? I decided to call the police. While waiting for them to arrive, I retraced my steps, checking every room, every drawer, every lock. Nothing seemed taken. Nothing seemed moved, and yet, the sense of violation lingered like a shadow over my shoulder. When the officers arrived, they were professional, calm. They examined the house, asked me questions, took notes. One officer, a young woman with a kind voice, said, "Sometimes, even when nothing is stolen, the feeling of someone invading your space is the hardest to deal with. You did the right thing calling us." Her words were meant to comfort, but they barely touched the raw knot of fear and confusion in my chest. I thanked them, but my mind wouldn't settle. There was something in the way the cleaning lady had spoken, something urgent, something that suggested she had seen more than she was letting on. Later that day, after the police had left, I sat on my couch, trying to steady my breathing. The house was quiet again. Too quiet. I thought of my late husband, Michael, who had always teased me about being overly cautious. He would have laughed at my worry, told me I was imagining things. But Michael was gone. And now, alone in my home, I realized how much I had underestimated the fragility of safety. That afternoon, I decided to review the security cameras. I hadn't checked them in months, busy with work, life, small errands, everything that kept me distracted. But now, I needed answers. My fingers trembled as I typed the code, and the screen flickered to life. There, in the grainy footage, I saw the figure. A man, tall, unfamiliar, moving through my hallway with a strange ease. He looked around, touched things lightly, as if he knew exactly what he was looking for. My stomach dropped. He was methodical. He wasn't just a trespasser. He was here for a reason. The footage ended abruptly. I rewound, paused, zoomed. Every detail felt crucial. His face was partially obscured, but his posture, the way he moved it, was enough to make my pulse quicken. I didn't recognize him. And yet, something in the way he carried himself seemed familiar. Too familiar. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window, the moon casting silver lines across my bedroom floor. The house was still, silent, except for the faint creak of the old floorboards. Our house always made these noises at night, but tonight they sounded sharper, as though mocking me. My mind went over every visitor I had recently, every person who had entered my home. Nothing seemed to match. No one I knew would. The next morning, I called my neighbor, Mrs. Thompson. She had lived across the street for over 20 years and was practically family. "Did you see anything unusual yesterday?" I asked, my voice low, careful. Mrs. Thompson hesitated. "Well, now that you mention it, I did notice a car parked across the street. I thought it was someone visiting, but it stayed there for hours. I didn't think much of it at the time." My heart sank. The pieces were starting to come together, each small clue twisting into something more alarming. I thanked her and hung up, feeling the weight of unease pressing down. By the end of the week, the unease had turned into a gnawing dread. I hired a private investigator, someone professional, discreet, who could look into the matter without alarming anyone else. I couldn't explain why, but something in my gut told me that this wasn't a random act. This man, whoever he was, had a purpose. Days passed. The investigator called me with updates. He was thorough, checking backgrounds, tracing any unusual activity around my neighborhood. But answers were slow, frustratingly slow. Each day, I felt the walls of my home closing in, my sense of security eroding. Then, one evening, as I sorted through mail, I found an envelope that had not been there before. It was unmarked, no return address. Inside was a single photograph, blurry, but unmistakable. It was him, standing in my hallway, the same figure from the security footage, and then, scrawled in a hurried hand, the words, "I know what you're hiding." My hands shook as I held the paper. Hiding what? My mind raced over every secret, every regret, every small mistake I had thought buried and forgotten. Who could know? And why would they threaten me? Sleep became impossible. I began keeping a flashlight by my bed, checking the locks multiple times each night. Every creak, every shadow, made me jump. I felt hunted. My home, once my sanctuary, now felt like a cage. One morning, as I poured coffee and stared out the window at the quiet street, I realized something. Fear had taken root, yes, but it would not control me. I would uncover this. I would face it, and I would reclaim my life. I didn't know then that the investigation would uncover secrets I had never anticipated. Secrets not just about a stranger, but about people I thought I could trust. Family, friends, neighbors, lines blurred in ways I couldn't yet comprehend. And the journey to uncover the truth would change everything. The next morning, I received a call from the private investigator. His voice was calm, professional, but I could hear the gravity behind his words. "I've found something you might want to see for yourself." I nodded, though he couldn't see me. "I'll come to your office," I asked. "No, better if I come to your home. It's safer, and I can show you the evidence directly." My stomach twisted. Safe. My home had never felt less safe. Yet, I agreed. Within an hour, he was at my door, briefcase in hand, moving with quiet authority. He unpacked a small portable laptop, sliding it onto the kitchen counter. "I've been monitoring unusual activity near your home for the past few weeks," he said. "Some things didn't make sense at first, but patterns emerged." Patterns. The word alone sent a chill down my spine. He played a series of videos captured from nearby surveillance cameras, nothing fancy, just small street cams. But the footage was enough. There he was again. The same man, moving discreetly. Sometimes lingering near my mailbox. Sometimes near the park where I walked every morning. He wasn't random. He wasn't careless. He was precise. "This isn't just trespassing," the investigator said softly. "He's watching, learning, waiting." I pressed my hands to my face, trying to keep my composure. But why? What could he possibly want from me? The investigator paused, watching my reaction. "That's what we need to find out. But I have reason to believe this might be personal." Personal. The word resonated in my chest like a drumbeat. Suddenly, I wasn't just scared. I was terrified. Personal meant I knew him. It meant betrayal. Someone close, someone who knew my life, my routines, my habits. Over the next few days, the investigator dug deeper. He traced phone records, background information, old addresses. Every lead felt like a thread unraveling a tapestry I hadn't realized was fragile. And then, a breakthrough. He called me late one evening. "I think I found him. Do you want me to come over now?" "Yes, please," I whispered, my voice barely audible. When he arrived, he handed me a small folder. Inside were photos, social media profiles, and documents. I recognized him immediately. Not a stranger. Not some random intruder. Someone I had trusted, someone I had welcomed into my home countless times. My brother-in-law. I couldn't breathe. My hands shook. How could I have been so blind? He had always seemed harmless, polite, a bit too interested in the details of my house. Yes, but I had shrugged it off. Now, looking at the evidence, every memory twisted into a lie. The investigator noticed my reaction. "Do you want me to handle this legally, or do you want to confront him first?" Confront him. I barely had control over my own emotions. I nodded slowly. "I need to see the truth. In person." The confrontation was like stepping into a storm. I invited him over, pretending normalcy, but my chest felt like it would explode. When he arrived, his smile was too bright, too casual. "I've missed our little coffee chats," he said, not noticing the icy glare I fixed on him. "You've been in my house," I said, my voice trembling but firm. "Do you have any idea how that feels?" His expression faltered for a split second. Then, carefully, he laughed it off. "Come on, you're imagining things." I was just curious. Curious, my blood boiled. Curious, you invaded my home, tracked my routines, and threatened me with a note. He shifted uncomfortably. I didn't mean it like that. I just needed to know things. About you, your life. I didn't think it would go this far. You didn't think. Do you hear yourself? My voice rose, but I forced myself to breathe. Everything about this is wrong. You've betrayed the trust of everyone in this family, and I won't let it continue. He opened his mouth to argue, but I didn't let him. I turned to the investigator, who had remained silent, documenting everything. "Take it from here," I said. Legal measures were taken swiftly. The man was served a restraining order, and I changed every lock in my home. Security cameras were upgraded, but the sense of safety didn't return immediately. My home, my sanctuary, had been violated, and the memory of his presence lingered. In the days that followed, I began to notice subtle things: how I flinched at shadows, how my hands shook when opening doors, how I double-checked every lock before bed. My mind replayed every moment, every interaction with him, and I realized how easily trust could be exploited. Then, something unexpected happened. My neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, approached me one afternoon. "I saw him again," she said quietly, "in the grocery store, watching the way you moved through the aisles." I didn't know what to do. I felt a wave of panic, but then, determination. No, I wouldn't let fear control me. Not anymore. I hired a security consultant to walk me through safety measures, taught myself basic surveillance techniques, and developed a routine that allowed me to feel in control. The investigator. I discovered other truths: hidden family tensions, secrets that had lain dormant for years. Betrayal was never one-dimensional. It came layered, with history, emotion, and sometimes misguided intentions. It hurt deeply to realize that someone you trusted could manipulate, spy, and endanger your life. But it also taught me resilience, strength, the importance of boundaries, and the value of intuition, listening to that quiet, insistent voice inside that warns when something is wrong. By the end of the month, my home felt like home again. Not because the threat had disappeared completely, that's never realistic, because I had taken control. I had faced the fear, confronted the betrayal, and reclaimed my space. I realized something else. Fear thrives in silence. Talking about it, documenting it, sharing it, those were tools of empowerment. That's why I'm telling this story now. Not to scare anyone unnecessarily, but to highlight that vigilance, courage, and action are forms of strength. Weeks passed, and I noticed subtle changes in the neighborhood. People talked, whispers followed me on morning walks, and there were curious glances in the grocery store. The news of the incident had spread not like a scandal, but quietly, through concerned neighbors and friends. It was strange, experiencing public attention for something that was deeply personal. On one hand, I felt exposed, vulnerable. On the other, I realized that by sharing my experience, others could be alerted, cautious, and empowered. My story wasn't just mine anymore. It became a small warning for the community. One afternoon, I received a call from my brother. He had heard about the incident and wanted to meet. I agreed reluctantly, unsure how he would react. When we sat down in the small cafe downtown, he studied me quietly. I didn't know he could do something like this. He said finally, voice low, eyes sincere, "It's shocking. I mean, family. You never expect this from someone close." "No, you don't," I replied, sipping my coffee slowly. "And that's why boundaries are so important. You can't just trust blindly, even with family." He nodded, a mix of guilt and understanding crossing his face. "I'll help however I can. He shouldn't be near you, ever." And he did. Together, we coordinated with local authorities, confirmed restraining orders, and ensured my home was protected. The man received a formal warning and legal restrictions. Socially, people were aware now, and his credibility within the community took a serious hit. But even as justice took shape, I had to contend with my own emotional healing. For weeks, I felt an undercurrent of anxiety. Small tremors when a car passed by too slowly, or a stranger lingered too long. Each day, I reminded myself, this isn't shameful. This isn't weakness. This is experience. To regain control, I started documenting everything: daily routines, visitor logs, interactions with neighbors. I even took small self-defense classes. Each step, though simple, felt like reclaiming a part of myself that had been stolen. Then came the unexpected. Mrs. Thompson, my neighbor, knocked on my door one sunny morning. "I wanted to say, thank you. Because of your story, I noticed something strange near my home last night. I called the authorities right away." Her words struck me deeply. "You mean, sharing my experience helped you act?" I asked, a soft smile forming. "Yes," she said. "And maybe others too. People will pay attention now. Because someone like him can't hide in silence." It was in that moment I realized a powerful truth. Vulnerability can be transformative. Sharing fear doesn't make you weak. It allows others to learn, prepare, and protect themselves. My story, painful as it was, became a source of collective strength. In the weeks that followed, I began to rebuild routines that had once been disrupted. Morning walks resumed without tension, though I kept alert. Mail was collected promptly, doors were locked, and security cameras became part of daily life. The house no longer felt violated, it felt fortified. Not just physically, but emotionally. And slowly, trust returned, carefully, deliberately. Not with everyone, but with myself. I learned to listen to instincts, to observe behavior carefully, and to assert boundaries firmly. I realized that betrayal isn't always dramatic. Sometimes, it's quiet, subtle, hidden in everyday actions, but it still demands attention, awareness, and response. I also found moments of gratitude. For friends who checked in, for my brother who supported me, for Mrs. Thompson who acted bravely. Their presence reminded me that life isn't only about danger and betrayal, it's also about kindness, solidarity, and courage. Months passed. The man who violated my trust had moved away, his presence now only a memory. Yet, the lessons lingered. I reflected often on the vulnerability we all experience when opening our lives to others. Trust is precious, but so is vigilance. Protection isn't about paranoia, it's about empowerment. I began volunteering at a local community group, sharing my experience in moderated sessions about home safety, personal security, and the importance of intuition. Each story I told reinforced the idea that human connection is valuable, but awareness is equally critical. One evening, sitting on my porch with a warm cup of tea, I noticed the subtle signs of peace returning. Birds chirped in the magnolia trees. The sun dipped gently over the horizon, and a sense of calm settled in my chest. I smiled softly, thinking of the journey I had traversed from fear and betrayal to awareness and resilience. I knew the experience had changed me. I wasn't simply the person I had been before. I had grown stronger, more aware, and more capable of protecting myself without living in fear. The human touch of compassion, the guidance of trusted allies, and the assertion of boundaries had created a new rhythm in my life. A rhythm grounded in dignity, self-respect, and empowerment. Even when the past whispered doubts, I could now face it with confidence, because I had confronted betrayal, acted decisively, and reclaimed control. I had learned that healing isn't a passive process. It's an active, deliberate choice. And every day, I chose to continue moving forward, with strength and awareness. By sharing my story, I hope others find courage. I hope anyone who has felt fear, betrayal, or violation realizes that empowerment is possible. Trust your instincts, protect your space, seek help when needed, and never underestimate the strength that comes from confronting the truth. Even now, I reflect often on the chain of events, grateful for the clarity it brought. Painful as it was, it revealed the resilience hidden within me, the importance of community, and the value of vigilance. I had learned that betrayal, though devastating, can become a catalyst for strength when approached with courage and awareness. The days slowly regained their rhythm, and with it came an unexpected sense of freedom. I realized that the storm had passed, leaving me with clarity I had never had before. The weight of fear that once sat heavily on my chest was now replaced by a quiet strength, one born not from ignorance, but from experience. I began to take long walks in the mornings again, savoring the gentle sunlight filtering through the trees. The world seemed softer, calmer, but I moved through it with new awareness. Every sound, every movement, every glance was not a source of paranoia, it was knowledge. And with knowledge came peace. At home, I rearranged the furniture, not just to refresh the space, but to symbolize a new chapter. The living room, once a place shadowed by unease, now felt warm again. Lavender-scented candles on the mantel, the soft hum of music in the background, and the subtle glow of fairy lights in the corners created a sanctuary, a place where I could breathe, reflect, and simply be. I also reconnected with old friends I had lost touch with over the years. Their warmth reminded me that human connection, when nurtured with care, is a source of profound strength. We laughed about old memories, shared our challenges, and celebrated small victories. I learned that vulnerability, when met with empathy, can be restorative rather than destructive. One afternoon, while journaling by the window, I reflected on the series of events that had brought me here. I realized that my life had been enriched, not diminished, by the trials I had faced. The experience had sharpened my instincts, strengthened my boundaries, and deepened my understanding of human behavior. I understood, more than ever, that trust is precious, but discernment is essential. I also recognized the power of choice. In every moment of fear or betrayal, I had chosen action over despair, awareness over ignorance, and empowerment over victory. These choices, simple as they might seem, had reshaped the trajectory of my life. Each decision, each act of self-protection, and each moment of reflection reinforced my sense of agency. During this time, I began volunteering at local community centers, sharing my experience in workshops on personal safety and emotional resilience, speaking to others, listening to their stories, and offering guidance became a way to channel my experience into something meaningful. I was not just healing myself, was helping others reclaim their sense of security and dignity. One evening, a young woman approached me after a session. Her hands trembled slightly, and her eyes were filled with hesitation. I think someone's been watching me," she whispered. I listened carefully, offering gentle guidance and practical steps to protect herself. As she left, she turned back and smiled faintly. "Thank you. You don't know how much this helps me." Her gratitude struck a chord deep within me. In that moment, I realized that my story, once painful, had become a source of strength for others. What had threatened to isolate and shatter me now had the power to educate, empower, and inspire. It was a reminder that even in the darkest moments, light could emerge, for we chose to face reality with courage and wisdom. At home, I cultivated new routines that reinforced my sense of well-being. Morning meditation, mindful breathing, journaling, and small acts of self-care became daily practices. Each morning, I reminded myself of the lessons I had learned: vigilance, boundaries, courage, and trust in one's instincts. Each night, I reflected on what had been accomplished, both in terms of protection and personal growth. I also reached out to those who had supported me quietly, friends, and even family members who had offered guidance without judgment. Their presence, once taken for granted, now felt like a lifeline. Gratitude, I realized, was not just an emotion, but a practice, a way to ground oneself in the goodness that persisted even in times of turmoil. Months later, the memory of the man who had violated my trust became a faint echo, rather than a vivid scar. His absence, the legal protections in place, and the awareness I had cultivated transformed my home into a true sanctuary. It was a space where laughter returned, meals were shared without tension, and evenings were spent in peaceful reflection. I began to explore new hobbies: painting, writing, and gardening. Each brushstroke, each written word, each seed planted became an act of reclaiming my life. Creativity, I discovered, was both therapeutic and empowering. It allowed me to transform fear into beauty, anxiety into purpose, and vulnerability into resilience. And as the months turned into a year, I noticed something remarkable. Not only had I healed emotionally, but my perspective on relationships had evolved. I no longer took trust for granted, but I also no longer approached life with suspicion. The balance between caution and openness, vigilance and compassion, became a guiding principle. In quiet moments, I reflected on the journey, how betrayal had revealed the depth of human complexity, the importance of boundaries, and the resilience that resides within each of us. I understood that life is neither predictable nor entirely safe, but with awareness, support, and self-respect, it is possible to navigate challenges with dignity and strength. I also realized the importance of storytelling. Sharing experiences, especially painful ones, is not merely about recounting events. It is about creating empathy, fostering understanding, and offering lessons that others can apply in their own lives. My story, once private and isolating, had the potential to resonate, teach, and empower countless others. Even now, I make a conscious effort to live deliberately, to honor both vulnerability and resilience. I cherish small moments: the sound of morning birds, the aroma of fresh coffee, the laughter of friends, the quiet satisfaction of a day lived with mindfulness. Each moment is a testament to growth, a reminder that the self can endure, adapt, and thrive even after profound betrayal. And in those reflective evenings, when the house is quiet and the world outside seems distant, I allow myself a small, gentle smile. I am here, I am safe, I am stronger than I ever imagined. And I know that the lessons I have learned to trust wisely, act decisively, embrace support, and honor one's boundaries will guide me for the rest of my life. As I sit here, reflecting on the journey I've shared with you, I realize that life rarely goes as planned. Sometimes, the people we trust the most are the ones who teach us the hardest lessons. But it's in those lessons, the moments of pain, doubt, and uncertainty, that we find the strength to grow. I hope my story reminds you that it's okay to feel hurt, to feel betrayed, and even to feel lost. These emotions don't make you weak, they make you human. What matters is how you respond, with courage, awareness, and compassion for yourself. Healing is not linear, but every step you take matters, no matter how small. And while I cannot change the past, I can choose how it shapes my future. I choose boundaries, I choose and I choose to surround myself with those who honor and value me. These choices have brought peace back into my life, and they can help you too, in your own way. Now, I want to ask you something. If you were in my shoes, how would you have handled betrayal? Would you have confronted, walked away, or tried to forgive? There is no single right answer, and every experience is unique. But sharing your thoughts can help others feel less alone. If my story resonated with you, I invite you to leave a comment and share your experiences. Your voice matters, and together, we can build a community that learns, heals, and supports one another. And if you want to hear more real-life stories of heartbreak, resilience, family drama, and human triumph, please subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell. Every week a new story awaits, ready to inspire, comfort, and remind us that even in the darkest moments, hope remains. Remember, trust wisely, protect your heart, and never forget your own strength. You are capable of more than you know.